They say the scariest stories aren't found in books or movies. Sometimes the truth is stranger and far more terrifying. Tonight, we're diving into some of the scariest Reddit stories that are too chilling to be made up. Keep the lights on, because these tales will haunt you long after the video ends. Our first story, The Uninvited Guest, takes us to a desolate highway in the middle of nowhere, where Redditor u/Lost in the Night recounts a chilling experience that blurs the line between the natural and the supernatural. On a stormy evening, they found themselves stranded after their car mysteriously broke down. Seeking shelter, they stumbled upon an old, seemingly abandoned gas station with flickering lights and an air of eerie stillness. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with unease, with shelves coated in dust and a clock ticking loudly, even though its hands didn't move. But it was the figure behind the counter, a man with lifeless eyes and an unnatural stillness, that truly set their hearts racing. When they turned to leave, the gas station was gone, replaced by an empty lot under the pouring rain, leaving them to wonder if they had encountered a ghostly remnant of the past, or something far worse. This chilling tale, The Sleepwalker, comes from Redditor u/Night Terrors, who shares the haunting experience of Emily, a college student struggling with chronic insomnia. What began as simple fatigue from late-night study sessions quickly spiraled into something far more disturbing. Emily started waking up in strange, unfamiliar places, sometimes the hallways of her dorm, other times the common room, with no memory of how she got there. But one night, things took a terrifying turn. After falling into an exhausted sleep during a study session in the library, she found herself deep in the cold, dimly lit basement of her dorm, completely disoriented and unable to recall how she got there. As she wandered through the abandoned basement hallways, she stumbled upon an old, forgotten classroom, its air thick with dust and decay. But it was the large, crooked mirror on the wall that caught her attention, and when she approached, her own reflection didn't just mirror her movements, it twisted into a grotesque, smiling version of herself that reached out from the glass. Frozen in terror, Emily was unable to escape the nightmarish encounter, but when she finally managed to break free, she woke up in her bed, drenched in sweat, unsure whether what she experienced was a nightmare or something far more sinister. As the days passed, the line between reality and dream blurred, and each time she slept, she found herself back in that basement, before the mirror, face to face with the haunting reflection. Was it merely a manifestation of her sleepwalking disorder? Or had she unwittingly tapped into something far darker and more dangerous? The Shadow in the Window is a chilling tale. Redditor u/City Haunter recounts their eerie experience living in a high-rise apartment in a bustling city. Daniel, a young professional, had always enjoyed the vibrancy of city life. But that sense of comfort slowly turned to unease as he began noticing something strange from his apartment window. Late one stormy night, he saw a dark figure standing motionless on a neighboring building's balcony, its silhouette unnervingly still, despite the storm's fury. At first, he dismissed it as another resident, but the figure remained for hours, almost as if it were watching him. When it appeared again the next night, closer to his window, Daniel's unease grew into terror. Desperate for answers, he set up a camera, and the footage he reviewed the next morning left him frozen with fear. The figure was moving unnaturally toward his window, distorting in horrifying ways before vanishing into thin air. As Daniel dug deeper into the building's history, he uncovered disturbing details about past disappearances and rumors of hauntings linked to his unit. Now, with the shadow haunting him, he was forced to leave. But before he did, the figure made its final appearance, lingering at his window as if waiting for him to leave. It seemed to beckon him, as if claiming him as its next victim, leaving Daniel and everyone who hears his story with the terrifying question of whether the figure was a ghost or something. The roommate who wasn't there, a haunting tale, comes from Redditor u/lonely scholar, who shared a terrifying experience from their college years, a memory they wished they could forget. It began during their sophomore year when they moved into a new dorm room and met their new roommate, Clara. Clara was a quiet and reserved girl who kept mostly to herself, often sitting on her bed, reading or staring out of the window. At first, the Redditor thought she was simply shy, but soon, her strange behavior began to unsettle them. Clara never seemed to eat or sleep, and sometimes late at night, she would hum a haunting melody that echoed through the stillness of the dorm. One night, after a long study session, the Redditor returned to find Clara sitting in the dark, her face obscured. And when they asked why, Clara whispered, "You shouldn't stay here tonight." Her voice was hollow, almost robotic. Clara then walked into the small closet and closed the door behind her. The Redditor, confused but not wanting to push, decided to go to bed. At around 3 a.m., they were jolted awake by the sound of heavy breathing coming from the closet. They froze in terror as they saw a pair of glowing eyes staring at them from the darkness. When they whispered, "Clara, is that you?" the eyes disappeared, and the breathing stopped. The next morning, Clara was gone. Her bed was perfectly made, and her belongings were neatly packed, but when the Redditor asked the dorm RA about Clara, the RA seemed confused, claiming that the Redditor had the single room since moving in. Laughing it off at first, the Redditor soon discovered that Clara's things were indeed gone, and even more unsettling, a note was found in their own notebook that simply read, "She watches you when you sleep." That night, the Redditor stayed at a friend's place, but when they returned to the dorm the next day, they found the closet door open once again, and the walls inside were covered with the same terrifying phrase, "She watches you when you sleep," written hundreds of times in scratchy handwriting. Terrified, they moved out of the dorm the very next day and transferred schools by the end of the semester. To this day, they don't know who or what Clara was, and sometimes, late at night, they still hear that strange melody, wondering if Clara is still watching. What did you think of these stories? Could they be real, or are they just the twisted imaginations of Reddit users? Either way, they make one thing clear. Sometimes the scariest things aren't what you see, but what you can't explain. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments which story gave you chills. Until next time, sleep tight.